everyone. Happy Sunday. Hope everyone's weekend was great. We're going to start our critique right now. First up, I'm going to go with Sam. Based off of your last, we're just going to look at your previous version without my notes. So previous version to now, huge step forward. Really nicely done. I think you're getting pretty close. There's a couple of things that I think you can do to kind of just bring this out a little bit more. First one is, I feel like in the foreground you can probably bump this rock, the key for this rock up, again not the caustics, but the key of this rock up a little bit more, getting a little bit closer to, it might be like maybe a half stop to a quarter stop. It's kind of that same feeling that we want to get over here. We want to make a little bit bolder statement of foreground where the key is happening compared to the background. So I think you can bring this up just a little bit more. Again, super close. I think for your God rays, I think that's another thing. I think you can boost the top ends of the, like, so when your grad, I love the grad that you have going on, but I think the top of it can be much stronger. If we look at the paint over, like, I feel like you can go to this value. I think you can go pretty strong with it where it's at the top end, and then as it grads down, that's where you can fade it off. But I really think you can make a bold statement and have these God rays in this section brighter and have more exposure. In the background, this area, I think like this structure, nicely done with adding some of that volumetric fog back there. I think you can go much more saturated, similar to what this image is doing. You can go way more saturated on that fog back there, and you can even lift it a little bit more too. So feel free to add more saturation on that. And then I think the shaping is way better now. It looks really nice. The eye shaping, adding in that bounce light, darkening into the mouth. It's very appealing now to look at this amphibian. Can't remember how to pronounce the name, but yeah, it's looking way better. And then maybe the last thing would be just to maybe take this down just a little bit right here. But other than that, add in those flecks and the chromatic aberration. And I think you're, like I said, I think you're really close. I'm going to go to Holly next. Holly, based off of your last version, I think it was here to here, great strides. I think you're those huge improvements, really nicely done. I think I'm gonna go back to this reference again, because I feel like the value structure that you had here was starting to work pretty nicely. I think you're missing maybe a chair here, missing that bench with the dead character in the back. So you might want to look at where those might be. And then the other tech fix that you might want to look at is that this character's hand is behind the table right now. So I believe, yeah, it was in front before. So yeah, this knife and this hand was in front before. So you might want to check that out. I think the color of this is looking pretty nice. I think you can probably add in a little bit more local color onto this brain. You might maybe like meet in the middle between where you had it before with that really saturated pink and where it is now. So I think you still have some room to add in some local color here. I think in the background you can. I feel like you can lose the volumetric fog. I don't think it's really giving you anything. I think it feels kind of like it's really dusty in there, but I would probably focus more on what this lamp can do. And actually, let me bring up that reference that we had before. No Country for Old Men. Let's see. find those image again. Okay, here we go. So if we look at this, your lamp is actually going to have a throw pattern, not just upward, but also downward. So you're going to get a throw pattern that's going down and up. You have it on the wall right here. That's really nice. If we look at this, I think the decay, you see how fast it decays? I think you can have the decay like probably fall off up until here. And the same thing down here. I think you can have it decay down here as well. You can have it thrown here and then decay down here as well. And the other thing too, what you can do is you have the saturation in there, but I think where like the core is, where it's the hot spot, this is where you can keep it. Think about those grads. We're not just thinking about how we can grad through value, but how are we gradding through hue and saturation as well. So I think you can take the saturation where the core is. So see here how it's much more neutral, and then it starts to get warmer as we get further out. So you can go more neutral here, and then it gets more saturated So as we fade, again, you can probably decay this a lot more, and then create that throw pattern down here and decay that as well. And then the last thing I want you to really pay attention with this image is where this light source is. It has a softer, like this in this area right here, you're probably gonna have another softer throw of light. It's not going to have that same pattern. It's just going to be more radial, and it just blends some of this area, makes it feel like the lamp, not just where the bulb is, because this throw pattern here of where that light is, that's coming from the bulb. This is coming from the bulb, and then this is coming from the actual shade. So we want the shade to add some light back there too. Just just adding some very soft light radially. I think that'll help. And then the other thing with your character is, I feel like what was working really nicely before, what you had is adding in just a little bit of more of that wrap right here, and then you can have a core on this side. So it's like thinking about like Rembrandt lighting. Just you have your key. If you add another wrap light that kind of ends around here, and you have a little bit of your core, and then you can shape it where you have this rim, and it feels like what the rim might want to do is, if the light is down below, is only hit this side, this plane of the arm, like right here, and then this side of the face. I wouldn't really it feels like the light is coming down on him, when really I would feel like you would just have like kind of a rim here, and then a rim on like this edge of his face. And then I think you can add a little bit more key light on this side, just to give more of that feeling of kind of similar to like what's going on over here, where you just have a little bit more of that feeling that the light is coming from this side. And then shaping and gradding to this end. But I think, and then I think we're losing a contact shadow for the fork as well. We have it here, that's great. I think we're just losing it here on this fork, so I would just look out for that as well. But yeah, I think great steps in the right direction. Just keep kind of hitting those notes, and I feel like you're getting much closer. Great job. Let's see. Okay, so Andre's here. Let me pull yours up. Let's see if I can bring this over here. I'll put that here. Okay, Andre.
Hey,
Great progress. I feel like things are looking really nice, and the shaping on your character is getting much better. Like the read in the room is looking nice. Good job putting like this in the background. I think there's a couple things that you can do now just to kind of push this just a little bit further. And the first thing that I think might help is, I think you can take where you're throwing this light, like this light shape, And I think you can probably start it like in the middle. Right now, we're almost getting like a tangent between the light and the edge of this painting. I think you can start it here. Let's see if I can get actually brush. So it feels like you can potentially, let me go, like start it here. And then have it come across. To like back here, and it can definitely be like it could be brighter here, and then it fades just a little bit here, so it's like getting a little bit of that grad. But I feel like that would like either and you might even have like enough room to kind of even play with it where it's up even a little bit higher.
Okay.
Just to again looking at like how ways you can frame him a little bit more.
Okay.
And again, like as it comes across, it doesn't have to be as bright as it is over here. It can be like maybe a stop lower. So I'm just looking at ways that you can start to frame him. And that's one way. And that'll also help with the tangent over here as well. And with this chair. Like you kind of just put it in like the middle of the chair and the painting, and then you can bring it across. The other thing too is like you can also over here where that light is the same thing. Oops. Is really have like a definitive like light to shadow. So this we want this to be shadow, right? Right now it feels like it's almost like half light over here. When we want to feel like this, like where we're cutting off this shadow, we have still the key light here on the desk compared to like everywhere else.
Yeah, I'll do that. I tried to do that. I felt it looks weird because it's like it's not the same light that's hitting the back. It's a soft light, so it kind of looks. I'll try to work on it because it kind of looks like there's something right there. It looked weird.
Yeah,
but I'll do that again.
You might need to take this one down a bit, like your shadow, just your shadow and like your fill side. You may need to take that down just a little bit, and then maybe like the light that's hitting right here is just a little bit harder.
Okay.
And if that's not working, I think it's really just about seeing how like you can get like the value change between key light and your fill light. The contrast ratio right now, compared to, let's see if I can bring up that reference again that you had. Let's see here. So it's really like seeing like kind of like getting the contrast ratios to feel like sunlight and fill light. And I think like what you have on your character right now, like this this shaping is super close. I feel like the key light on your character can actually come down just slightly. And then you can and then like your fill light can actually, I think you can probably add more local color to it just a little bit, because he's starting to go a bit gray. I think even in like this reference, you still get a little bit of the richness of her skin tones in here, which you can do with your character as well. Like this feels like like a lot like his skin tone. And then when we get over here, because I think the light is I would go a little bit more neutral than cool. And that way you're keeping within still like the skin tones. You can feel it on his shirt too. I would rather have his shirt go a little bit more saturated local color than like cool color.
Okay.
And then it feels like you can actually go like push the lockers back a little bit more, like in distance, like Z depth. I think you can translate the lockers further out, because to me right at the moment they feel like they are a little bit close to the door. And so you can probably translate them out a little bit more, and then have maybe just like a broad soft light, as though there's like light through like kind of like similar to like this right here. Like there's still some light back there through the hallway.
Okay.
And then the last things you can start looking at is what are some ways to grad this room. Like you can see it's really nice, like on your ceiling. The ceiling's starting to feel like that. I feel like where the bounce you're getting from here, you can actually extend that more, so we can feel that, like we want to feel some of those shifts. So like if we look at here, it's darker here and lighter here. So like where the light is, like I can see some of it here, but I think you can like push that grad a bit, a little bit there, and then a little bit here too. So like it's a little bit brighter around where your sunlight is hitting, and then it grads to kind of like this value. So like looking at this reference again, see where the sunlight is happening, it's a little bit brighter around it, and then it starts to grad. So just looking at ways to like add some depth and dimensionality of the actual classroom as well. DOF looks great. Oh, and then the last thing is that you can do is with his eyes. I love how you're getting some of this eye shaping in there. So now the next thing you can start doing is you have your eye spec in there, and now let's start to like get the feeling that we're getting a lot more shaping in the iris. And then a lot of times what we do is to shape the iris. Let me see if I can get some exposures. Drop this down a bit. Actually, let's go hue and saturation. So where keeping it brighter on the opposite side of the eye-ding, you can start to darken the iris where the eye-ding is. So that just starts to add a little bit more shaping. You see how like now we're starting to get a feeling that our irises are a little bit more concave. So
yeah. How would you do that on the moving image? Because I've done that a lot in Photoshop on a photo, but
yeah,
not sure it.
Do you have a matte for just the iris?
A what?
A matte, like a mask?
No.
So in you're in Arnold, correct?
No, RenderMan.
Oh, Okay, yeah, RenderMan has. Do they have puzzle mats, right? Is that what's? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
Let me look it up for you tonight. I believe they have what are known as puzzle mats, and it's like a geometry mat. So it takes whatever geometry that you have, and it creates like an RG. You can put an RGB against it, and then in Nuke you can then shuffle out, like if it's a red mat, you can shuffle out the red channel into the alpha, and you can start using that as a mask. And then we have, you know what? Next, I'll do a tutorial on
Okay.
next
Cool.
on how we shape eyes a lot to get like kind of
Okay.
this feel. Yeah. So next critique, I think that's Tuesday. I'll do a tutorial.
Okay. Cool. One other question. I did took out the writings on the other desks, but
Yeah.
I was wondering because it's like my idea was like for him to be kind of like he's not the he's not the genius outcast that nobody comprehends. He's the one that thinks he's the genius, but he's nothing. So would it be and that's why like I have like now they're like desaturated on the back, but like the paintings are like, you know, Basquiat and Rothko and Picasso and stuff, the
Yeah.
paintings on
Yeah.
the back. But so I was wondering, wouldn't it be maybe more interesting to do the other way around? His desk is clean and the other ones are all artworked.
I mean, like when we were going to school, like what all the desks like were pretty clean, you know, unless they were the rebels. The rebels would tend to mark up stuff because they're either bored or distracted or they're just not interested, right? Um,
Yeah.
uh, I would expect maybe like some of the the ones that are clean now maybe have a you know feel aged a bit. They could feel some like they've been there a while. Like there's been many classes that have gone through here, but I wouldn't expect that all of them would have like artwork on them because most of the time we're doing art on, you know, like we have our horse and canvas and or our easels, or like we're drawing like on top of our desk with the. So I think I when I look at this, there's a lot of contrast, right? Like the contrast right now is someone who's like certainly feels like he's the genius and probably distracted and bored and not paying attention. So he's probably marking up, and personally, I don't know if like he would be marking up the front side, but it'd probably be the top side, especially if he doesn't want to get caught. But I think it's a good contrast, and it brings us back to the what you have here. It brings us back to seeing him.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think if we have a
Okay.
lot of like this, if we have a lot of um, like details and stuff like on everything else, it becomes more contrast in our interest around him, surrounding him. And I think we want to keep more of the interest towards him. Um,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
but yeah, that's just my thoughts. Um, feel whatever you feel is like the most like the biggest story point for you in here. You can go with your gut with that.
Okay.
What I'm just mentioning is just how I would I'm just looking at it as like more of a contrast situation of how do we get our eye back to your character here. Um,
No, no, yeah, you're right. You're right. We need to focus on him, not on the other desks.
but yeah, I think like what you have like right from this to this is already feeling like big strides. I think you're getting closer to that, and the shaping is starting to look really nice. You might even have room to bring down the fill too on him,
Mm-hmm.
just to get a little more, you know, dark over light. Like I'm squinting my eyes right now, and I feel like his value is maybe like a stop down from the background. I think you might, if we like look at Kate Winslet's, um, uh, like her, if I'm squinting my eyes, like we have a very distinct dark over light here. and dark over light up there as well, and then it becomes
Hmm.
light over dark down here. So it's like I think you have some room to to bring the fill down just a little bit as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's looking great. Just think, the next steps is like really thinking about like how do we shape the room more? How do we create more depth in here? And that's why I was like thinking pushing these blockers back further and then adding some light
Hmm.
back there, so that way you get like less contrast. Like if you look at like this image, like it's dark back there, but there's not a lot of contrast.
Uh-huh.
So you feel that depth.
Okay.
But yeah, awesome job.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Um, okay, let's Darwin, you're here right now. Um,
Yep.
d-
Hi.
hey, so yeah, another. I think the steps that you took in here are already feeling a lot nicer, and like the contrast, things are separating a lot more through a graphic when we're looking at it through graphic design. Um, just adding some of those warm tones and neutral tones back there is already feeling um, and you simplified a lot of those shadows too. It's looking much better. The one question that I want to have right now is what time of day um, are we trying to set the tone and mood for here?
What I was thinking of afternoon, like maybe around 3, 4 p.m. or
Okay.
something.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, it's starting, and that definitely starting to feel like that. You were talking about the volume, right? Like uh, how you're feeling about that. I actually grabbed some reference.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I don't know if it may be better to not have a volume in the shot and maybe do um the hollow
Oh, the halation.
correlations. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so let me see if I can get this image a little bit bigger. So tone wise, completely different, right?
I
This is
know.
like very happy, like bright. But what I wanted to pick for reference was how the window feels. You see how it still feels like there's a little bit of haze, and it's only like set around here. It's like a combination of like halation and like a little bit of like volume there.
Yeah, and I want to get that. I actually have like a kind of the same feeling when I put my reference from Red from Pixar. The
Oh yeah.
It has kind of the same feeling, like it has a little bit of volume and as well the halations in there.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to get that. Like it's been confusing for it.
Okay, so let's focus on the volume first. So with the volume, what you can do is um, you're gonna probably want a very large light source, and you don't want like these rays. And having a larger light source is gonna soften the shadows over here, and it's gonna make it feel like a larger volume. Then the next thing is you're gonna want to add a decay to it, so it like ends like around here. Um, so
Okay.
so what you in the back you can outside you can add um, just a large light. It can be like an area light, like potentially even like the size of this window, um, and then see how far that like you can put the intensity pretty high, and then you can see how far it starts traveling in here, and then you add a decay filter to it to where it starts to just decay here around
Okay.
here.
Do you know if there's a because I was thinking when you said that, I only have the volume affecting the sun, which is an area light, hitting both of them. But then I have a sky dome to kind of fill the room a little bit more with a blue light, kind of
Mm-hmm.
from the sky. Then what if I use the sky dome as the volume, and it wouldn't do the same thing, or maybe it's better to just have a area light
Yeah,
on the
I think
window.
having just an area light linked only to the volume, is probably what
Okay.
you're gonna want to get,
Okay.
because it's gonna be a very kind of specialized light that you want, and like a specialized look. So you can turn off like all your other lights off of the volume, and then just only isolate that like area light or surrounding the window. And then for halation, to do that, you're in Nuke, you'll probably want to have mats for the windows. And then like do like a glow. You're gonna just glow within. You're gonna mask only like those windows, and you're gonna do a glow. Um, and then uh, and then from there you stencil. I might have to do it. Yeah, you know what? I'll probably do 2 tutorials on Tuesday.
Okay.
Just to
I kind of get
it's
what you're suggesting. So I was watching in YouTube some videos of how to do
yeah,
halations, but
it's like wrap light. It's like a wrap light. Um,
yeah.
that just for this area, and you're only gonna want it pretty soft and subtle. You don't want to go too strong with it. Again, we're trying to like get like this look where it's very
Yeah.
soft. Um,
So the volumetric would be just a separate layer from everything else.
Correct. Yeah, that's usually what we do in the studio. Is our volumes are not embedded in our render, and it gives us much more control that way too.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll do that. Do that. I had it well linked to every render layer, so
Yeah,
maybe I have to put it aside and create a separate layer for that,
yeah. I
for the
would.
volume.
I think it's good practice to start putting your volumes in a separate layer, um, and have everything else as a cutout, and only have your volume in there. Um, so that's like the first thing that you can start like deving, is getting that look. I do feel like maybe this character is getting a little bit too flashed of light. Like it's a little bit, the sun is like, I would expect maybe that sun like is hitting kind of similar to this character, like off of this side, and then you have your wrap light. So I think it might be a little bit. I think it's better than where it might be like halfway between this and this. Um,
Okay.
and you might also like think about um, yeah, we'll see what that looks like first, but you can probably take the value of this door and maybe go. Okay, so let me. Again, I'm squinting my eyes. He's reading pretty well, actually. Okay, so we'll forget about that for now. Um, one thing that you probably want to look at is, I feel like this character's subsurface scatter might be too strong. When I'm looking at him, he feels a little bit gummy. I'm even seeing his like arm here is feeling, like it doesn't feel like it's getting the bounce light from here. This feels like it's almost like the subsurface scattering is getting a little bit too strong on him. So you might want to check that out.
Okay.
See if you need to bring that back a bit. And then I think like you can like you can bring that wrap around him a bit more.
To circle his face a little bit more
to get more shaping on his face. So like right now I'm squinting my eyes and before you do anything, I would get the subsurface scatter like check your subsurface scatter because that might solve a lot of the shaping. The other last couple things that you can do right now is I think you can probably light link this shadow off. Like you can turn these shadows off. I'm just looking at like simplifying this read a bit. Like you don't if you take off these I'm not sure where this shadow is coming from because there's two shadows happening. But I feel like these can be simplified and you can just have the read of the couch or the chair in light right here, and then we can potentially grad it. But I would try to simplify that read a bit.
Okay.
And then now that you can probably get a little bit brighter on the ground, like right here, and you can do a bounce light. Like you can do a bounce light going up a bit. So it's like darker at the top, and then you have some more like bounce light from below. So we're shaping vertically now. Let me see if I can see if we have that reference in here. You see, okay, it's very subtle in here, but if you look at back here and you squint your eyes, there's like two different types of shaping. They have like shaping. You see how it's a little bit where this window is, it's brighter here and it gets darker in this direction. It's same here. It's like brighter here and it gets darker in this direction. And then like this you can see like the couch here, it's like brighter here and it gets darker here. So it's like thinking about how do we like add in these grads within our room to create these like kind of this depth. So it's like you might have like warmer bounce light from below hitting the wall, and then it gets darker, like cooler, slightly cooler, not like really not like saturated, but you can see it in here, like the shifts of tone of hue is not like, they're not very strong and saturated. So you get warmths here, you see cools here, but they're not very the saturation is not broad. The contrast is not strong. So think about how you can add additional shaping within the room. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm just thinking how to do it, but I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like one way you can do it is you just get an area light down here, and then you have it pointing upward, and then you add a decay filter. You can see like how strong it is, but you can add a little bit of a decay filter. So you get it to like exactly where you want it. Like it might end like halfway up the wall.
Okay, but that'll be for like an area light going to the corner, right? To create the depth.
So it's like, let me see if I can do this. Let's do bright saturation. And then see if I can.
I see. Okay.
I mean, actually, you can probably make. So you start to see like how.
Yeah, it does feel more depth. There's more depth to it.
Yeah, and like you can just go. See how like now the warmth is now like it's starting to feel like the sun is coming from the bottom. You know, like it's bounce light.
Uh-huh.
And so what it does is it starts to shape. You know uh, the room a bit. So like you see, like I didn't even have to change the color of up here, but it still feels cool, right?
Because of the contrast,
Because
I guess.
adding more warmth to the like all we did was add more warmth and brightness to the bottom, and now up here it's just the neutral color feels cool. So it's like those contrasts that you can start doing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm getting
now
excited about this.
cool,
It's
cool, cool,
coming
cool.
along.
Yeah, you see, like it's like you start to the first things you want to do is get your staging, which you did. You got your staging of framing him in the light, getting the light to hit this character so he's light over dark. The next part of the staging is how do we simplify, and part of that is going to be like taking away some of these shadows. So like, hopefully, let's see if I can just give you an example of like what. Again, this is going to be a very bad example, but as you start getting rid of some of these shadows, it'll start to simplify a bit. And that's really bad, but simplifying this, and then you start to add some of your depth. You know, it's like where are we think about grads. Grads are our best friend when it comes to shaping. Like grading in like upwards, grading in hue. So it's like maybe you're going from like a warm tone to a cool tone. Grading in value, grading in saturation. So some areas might be. I went over this in Holly's image earlier, where like the light where the core is might be desaturated, but as it gets further away and attenuates, it gets more saturated. So those are things that you want to think about when you're lighting your shot. Okay, so I think those are some next like steps that you can start working on to kind of push this image a little bit further.
Okay, so just to recap a little,
Right.
I have it's so create the volumetric only for the window, right? And also having a bounce light from behind to create more shape, and from the sunlight just tone it down a bit, brighten it down a bit, right?
So the sunlight you're on the ground, you're gonna want to like add a little bit of brightness and saturation. See how it's like,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
um, and then on the chair, you're gonna simplify the shadows on the chair. So trying to unlink the shadow from this object, the plant on the chair. So like try to unlink that shadow from it. And then try to find a way to get rid of this shadow too. Again, whether that's like having that broader light or or just unlinking that from this chair completely.
I'll do that.
And then last thing is the subsurface scatter on this character.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah,
Check
sure.
check the subsurface scatter on him and see if because I have a feeling that it's a little bit too strong just from like how I'm just looking at like the way the light is hitting him like from this key. It feels like there's a little bit of gumminess happening on him. So yeah, you can just check that out and see if if you can tone that down a bit, and that might help with our shaping on our character from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Right,
Thank you, Shane.
No problem. Great job. All right, we're going to go to Carolina next. Fantastic updates from here. I think there you can do a couple additional things. I love how you kept the foreground out of focus. I think you can actually just remove the key light from the foreground objects completely and just have it all in shadow. Because I'm getting a lot of like warm contrast over here, warm contrast over here. My eye starts to look at the foreground a little more. I think you can just put all of that into shadow. The other thing you might want to do too is, I'm looking at this in composition wise, you might want to potentially take this tree and move it over here, so you have your tree here, and then potentially framing this character, and then taking this tree back here and then moving it over in the keeping it in the same distance. So keep this tree still in the foreground, but then put that tree back here. Again, I'm just thinking of ways that you can frame your character a little bit better and not have him like right now it's a little bit, I'm just thinking about like how you can simplify this read a bit. So if you just have him over the sky and then have these trees kind of framing him, I think that might be a simpler composition to look at. And then the other things you can do is then you can add some atmosphere to these trees in the background. So right now I'm looking at depth cues. So in the foreground we have our darks and our kind of our darkest darks of the scene. And then as we get further back, you're gonna have a little bit more. You're gonna have less contrast. So let me see if I can. Sunset trees. Sorry, but I'm just trying to find a specific. Okay. So just looking at this as an example, foreground trees here, you get that depth cue of those darks, and then as you get back, you start to get more atmosphere on top of them. I think that's something that you see it like here. We don't have to go that far because our depth isn't that far, but I think you can start adding less contrast to your foreground or your background trees. Then the last thing you can, the other thing too is you can potentially take some of these foreground. Actually, yeah, I think you can do that, and then you might want to take down the light over here just a little bit. And I think you can. The last thing you can do is start to bring in a little bit more of that wrap light across them, and having a little bit more warmth right here. So it's like if you bring up that wrap light a little bit more and have a little bit more of that soft sunlight, I think that's going to shape them a little bit better. This is once we get onto a lighter background, I think you're going to have a nice dark over light feel, and I think those couple steps will help to simplify the image a bit, and then we can see where you are there. But I think great. I love the direction that you have your light. Like the shaping is getting so close on your character too. This is starting to look really nice. And like just like the facial features that you can see where we're seeing the plane changes looking great. I think you just add a little bit more warm wrap light on him. I think we potentially change your composition a bit just to try to see if we can frame him. Add some more atmosphere for depth, and then putting everything in the foreground in shadow. But yeah, great steps. It's huge improvements from the previous version. Okay, I think the last one is Pete. I love the new angle you have here and just where the light is coming from. This is looking really great. I think you can add in some atmosphere in the background just a little bit. I think it's screaming for a little bit of atmosphere, especially since you're in and around water and you have this warm sunlight coming from the back. It feels like you can add some of that, like some of that warm glow or atmosphere back there, kind of grading in a bit. I feel like think that looks great that you're starting to add in more of those richness, but I think like with some of her specks or her reflections on her skin tones feels almost a little bit fake because they're going warm, where I'm looking at like what is the sky light doing, and it stays neutral, and then their skin tones, they're diffused. So this is like the reflection, and then the diffuse is where the warm richness is. So I think keeping reflections cool, and then have the richness. I think right here, this is where you want to add some more of that saturation back in where this fill is. This is looking great. This is gorgeous. I think you can probably bring your eye specs up just a little bit. The shaping on your irises are starting to look really nice, where it's darker over here, a little bit lighter over here. I feel like just bringing the eye specs up just a little bit here is going to help make her eyes feel a little more appealing. I think the other thing is, like, again, keeping the specular hits on her skin a little bit more neutral, but like the diffuse like fills, that's where you want to bring back some of that richness and saturation. Same like right here, like this is looking great. All the specular hits here is looking great. I think this is where it starts to go a bit gray, a bit, and you want to add in back some of that saturation. Shaping of her sweater looks great. I'm squinting my eyes and she's separating from the background. You might want to bring back a little bit of light behind here. I'm just looking at like a dark over light read, just so we can see that silhouette completely. But this all reads really nicely. Yeah, I think you're getting really much closer of the richness that you have in the background. It feels like we're there next to this waterfall, especially having these bright yellow greens against these cool water tones. Yeah, this is a great composition. I would stick with this composition, and then just work on the shaping and the color tones that you have. Yeah, I think that's all I got for this one, and I believe that is the last image for tonight. Again, great job everyone.